if you are not standing up right now, banging your head, throwing devil horns in the air like you just don't care, then you have no soul. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, tonight, the mandated reporter, and frankly, he's mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich, returns to the podcast that started it all here on the Radulich and Broadcasting Network, The Long Road to Ruin. That's right, folks. Mark Radulich, I'm back. No long medleys, no celebrations, no pomp and circumstance. I don't need it. Why? Because I'm just that goddamn good. Let's get right into this. We got 3 giant-sized Michael Bay, boom, movies to talk about tonight, and I am excited as all get out, pleased as punch to get right into these movies. But I'm not doing it alone. Here's a man who keeps the seat warm for me while I go off on my adventures with dwarves and wizards and visiting dragons and such. This is all a euphemism for I took a few weeks off to go parent my child. Ladies and gentlemen, he is a wordsmith that practically makes me a mute. Never dull your colors for somebody else's canvas. Friends and family, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, Sean motherfucking Comer! How do you do, sir?
Ladies and gentlemen, I am but the Silver Surfer, and it is good to have Galactus back. Boss, the keys to the office are yours again. The Exo Comer stands relieved.
First of all, someone needs to go into the basements of Sheboygan, Milwaukee, and go find the members of Lion and get them back and get them on tour. Steel Panther is opening for Judas Priest across the nation. I think we can find 5 or 10 minutes for Lion, and all they need to do is play Transformers for 10 minutes. What do you think? I mean, they don't write music like that anymore, do they?
Quite frankly, I understand why you would just go with the theme song, but quite frankly, I was honestly just waiting to hear, "You got the touch! You got the power! Oh, yeah."
Whenever all is said and done. Sorry. You're a winner! That's great. All right, folks. We are, in fact, not going to discuss the animated movies. Oh, no, that's not true. Well, as a point of reference, we'll bring up the animated feature from 1986. We'll bring up the animated TV show that started it all, because we have to. But this podcast is really about the Michael Bay movies, and so as a compare and contrast, we'll probably bring it up more than once. But in general, we're here tonight because it is Transformers Week. Age of Extinction came out this past Thursday night, which I saw, and I enjoyed it. And you'll hear more about that hopefully this Thursday with myself, Robert Winfrey, and Patrick Mullen. But we are tonight going to break down, dissect, rip apart the first 3 Michael Bay Transformers movies. Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, Transformers Dark Side of the Moon, Transformers 4, Transformers for those about to rock, whatever. We're going to do it all tonight. So let's before we get into all of this, let me ask you, Sean.
Before we get into all this, fight me, Ben. I make karaoke quake.
What was that now?
Oh, Ben.
Oh, okay. I'm seeing the comment now. I'm seeing the comment. I'm caught up to speed.
As far as singers go, Sean makes a good critic. No, that's actually probably pretty fair. I never pretended to have any metal chops. Never by any stretch. I listen, but I don't try to partake actively.
You know, they say some people do and other people teach, and then there's a third category that just criticize, and that would be me, folks. All right, so Transformers. Normally I say, whenever we start one of these podcasts, just to sort of get our feet wet, get the early stretch in there, we talk about, what brought you to these films. I'm actually going to start a little bit differently tonight. Were you familiar with Michael Bay as a director before? I feel like seemingly he became a pop culture reference with the Transformers movies. And and I'm okay if I'm wrong about that, but I feel like I didn't really know Michael Bay until, like, I saw the Transformers movies, I got the style, and then I think Robot Chicken did a bit on him where they would just say his name and then blow something up, and that's where we all get the Michael Bay boom from. But I want to talk a little bit about Michael Bay, the director, and there's a reason why I'm bringing this up first. So speak to me, Sean, about your relationship to Michael Bay, if any.
There's not much of one. I mean, yeah, I was familiar with him because I'd seen Bad Boys, I'd seen Armageddon. I knew who he was, but if anything, yeah, you got to kind of give Transformers some credit because prior to that, he was working on original movies, on independently concocted ideas. And this was the first and I believe to date only time that he's really been handed the reins of a licensed property. So, and naturally, I mean, Transformers was something that a lot of people had been trying to bring to the screen for years. And once the wait was finally over and somebody finally made it happen, well, yeah, obviously everybody was going to be really curious about whoever it was that was going to be making it. And also, the other thing he's going to go down in history for is for the fact that somehow he has managed to make Paramount Pictures billions upon billions upon billions upon billions upon billions and billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars and billions and dollars and billions of dollars on movies that seemingly just about everybody with an above Forrest Gump level IQ seems to agree suck. And so he has become the quintessential avatar of the director, and obviously he's not the first one, but of movies that critics may not like, even a lot of fans may not necessarily like, but God love them. Inexplicably, they have bought some executives some pure platinum toilets.
Let's just go ahead and say this. To hell with the critics. Even to hell with the fans. I mean, you and I know it'll oftentimes fall on divided lines when it comes to things beloved by fans. This thing, people are seeing these movies, and they're coming back. Even when the movies get progressively worse, they're coming back. Even when, people say, but the turtles don't even look like turtles. They're going to that movie. I mean, when I saw Age of Extinction Friday night, now it had already come out Thursday night, but I saw it Friday night in a middle class theater, and it was packed. I mean, the place was packed to the gills. People were cheering like it was a Star Wars movie when Bumblebee came on the screen. So for all the criticism that Michael Bay gets, and there's going to be plenty on this podcast, I think the one thing that you can say without a shadow of a doubt is he's making movies that please people, lots and lots of people.
Yeah.
And yes, maybe the ones that we talk to aren't particularly happy about it, but we are not the only ones keeping the movie theaters afloat. And much like professional wrestling, if it were entirely dependent on folks like us, it would be out of business. Let's start with the cartoon. I was a huge fan of the cartoon growing up as a kid. The big four: G.I. Joe, Transformers, Thundercats, He-Man. Quiet, you. my wife just yells out, and Gem. If you're a girl. But so I have to now share a little bit. I've been booted out of my studio between my son habitating in that room, and now we have a house guest from California, my cousin. I'm now podcasting from an undisclosed area in my house, which is between my living room and my kitchen. and the rest of the inhabitants of his house won't shut up long enough for me to get a sentence out. I got a peanut gallery going here. Still love you, honey. You too over there. Anywho's, so yeah, the big four cartoons. If you were born in the late '70s and grew up as a child of the '80s, He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transformers, and Thundercats. You were a fan of.
See me, I had all of those, but I also, for the brief time it was actually on, I also had the Silverhawks.
Yeah, Silverhawks was a distant 5. I mean, that was definitely people liked it, but I would say it was not as popular as those four. It was there.
No. Not remotely. I mean, we're probably never going to get a live action Silverhawks movie. Although if we do and you got the right person in charge of it, I firmly believe it would be fucking awesome, and I would watch that so damn hard.
Actually, I would tell you Silverhawks was the 6th. The 5th one was Voltron.
Yeah, there was a little bit of Voltron. I wasn't quite as into Voltron as I was the other ones.
Yeah, the audience may have been split on that between the Voltron fans and the Silverhawks fans, but I digress. Look, let's talk turkey about Transformers for just a moment. Here we had a situation where there's a toy company trying to sell toys, and their marketing strategy was to create a show that was for children to watch, so they would go out and buy the toys. There's nothing more to this, folks. So for everybody who's all up in arms that the art of the Transformers seems to have been lost in the Michael Bay films, get a hold of yourself. These were 22-minute commercials for toys. It just so happens that in the hands of some very talented people, they created what was essentially an awesome 22-minute commercial that was aimed to sell toys. The Transformers series was one of the more successful ones of its time, and it's beloved by fans. And one of the reasons it's beloved by fans was because of Transformers the movie. I actually read an article recently where they said that killing Optimus Prime was probably the quintessential moment in the lexicon of Transformers history, because suddenly it made a very I don't know if you agree with this or not, but it made a very childish thing all of a sudden very serious. Who killed He-Man? Who killed? I don't even think Duke died in G.I. Joe in any one of the made-for-TV movies. I think he took a snake to the heart in one episode, in one of the ones with Serpentor. But I wanted to say he lived through that. Now everyone Facebook bomb me and tell me I'm wrong. But yeah, killing Optimus Prime was just one of those moments that stayed in the hearts and minds of the children that watched those movies. And I was 10 at the time that came out, and it's been beloved ever since. They've reinvented the Transformers a few different times. Beast Wars. It exists currently as Rescue Bots, which would be more for my son. That kind of age group, that 0 through 3 to maybe 0 through 5. But did you ever see the original Transformers, the movie, and what was your thoughts on them killing Optimus Prime?
Oh, you mean that clever 2-hour way to phase out the original lineup to make room for new toys?
Did I mention something about these being commercials? Did I mention that these were meant to sell toys?
Oh.
Sure, yes.
No. Okay, you know what? Let's not bullshit. That is the biggest reason for the massive body count in the original movie. I'm assuming that you're talking about the one with Orson Welles as the voice of Unicron in his final role. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. Even the people who made it said yes, this was a serious thing, and yes, it scarred a lot of kids. On the other hand, they all had Optimus Prime dolls, and we needed to sell them new toys. Go.
Yeah, I mean, it got pretty hardcore with the body count in that movie, and with what they got away with, because as many other shows do, the first one that comes to my mind is Samurai Jack. It gets away with some pretty gory, graphic shit just because they're not living human beings.
So with all that being said, this is the grist that Michael Bay is given to create live-action movies. And I'm going to say it once, I'm going to say it a few times throughout this podcast. At the end of the day, they took a 22-minute commercial meant to sell children toys about giant robots punching each other in the face. And the instructions were, go make a feature-length motion picture with today's technology to create lifelike giant robots punching each other in the face. We're not so much concerned about the toys this time.
And you know what? I would even go ahead and throw in that as a gamer, this is the first thing that pops into my mind about this series more often than not, is simply the fact this is one of those instances in which you have a movie franchise that has spawned a line of parallel video games that I would rather play than watch the movies, because they're actually, I mean, it's not like we're talking about The Last of Us or Uncharted or Mass Effect level of quality here, but they're genuinely really enjoyable. I mean, they're really, really good. So in that sense, the tradition kind of continues. You got more merchandising, because every time one of these movies comes out, there's another game in the series. And so far, the games are usually met with, honestly, pretty favorable reviews. So I would really recommend going out and checking out the Cybertron series. In fact, there's a new one that just came out recently, Rise of the Darkspark, I believe it's called. In fact, off the top of my head, I can only really think of one other movie and game combination about that where I can say the same thing, and that's the fact that I enjoyed Green Lantern: Rise of the Manhunters exponentially more than I enjoyed, I think, a single moment of the movie that it was based on. So
they're also still selling toys. You know, with the birth of the live action movies, they put out toys based on the movies, and those they sell with children.
And you know,
go ahead.
Well, and rightfully so, because as we're going to get into here in a minute, I'm sure there are a lot of people that are tuning in, knowing me the way that they do, expecting this to be one 90-minute long just stream of me bellowing into the asshole of Satan that is the internet about how awful these movies are. Not everything I have to say is necessarily going to be bad. In fact, as we'll get into shortly, one of the positive things I can say about it is that if Michael Bay and company, if I give them credit for getting just one thing right, just one thing, it's the fact that the Autobots and Decepticons look absolutely fantastic.
For the most part, I have some qualms about a few of them, but yeah, you're right. They did a great job using today's technology to make really good-looking giant robots. I want to say this, and then I want to get into the movies. And I was starting to get into this before. Excuse me. And that is simply this: these movies are meant for fun. This is not Lord of the Rings. This is not Saving Private Ryan. This is not even a Quentin Tarantino film. These are not supposed to be critiques on some aspect of life. These are not modern day, parables or fairy tales. This is a guy given a bunch of toys and said, go make something with this that's going to entertain people. And in that sense, every single one of these movies has been a smashing success. Now, as film critics, we can talk about how plots are convoluted. Some of the, we can talk about, and we will. We can talk about how some of the action sequences look like they were shot by somebody who didn't know how to work a camera. But I tell you, I watched my daughter play with her princesses and her My Little Ponies and her Barbies, and I've referred to her recently as little Martin Scorsese, because she sets up entire worlds, and she's talking and she's doing different, she's doing dialogue with the toys, and what looks like a big giant mess in the middle of my living room, to her is this wide, expansive universe with all of these characters that she's setting up and knocking down. And I can think of no other way than that to say that is a Michael Bay Transformers movie. It's a giant child with a bunch of toys playing for all the world to see. And I'm not knocking them for that. There are elements that are knockable, and that's what we'll talk about. But overall, for the people who take these things so seriously, as if it's supposed to be Othello, you know, some need to go for a walk and maybe get a life. So with that said, as people slowly start to switch off this podcast, because I've now, fuck you, man, they ruined it. July 3rd, 2007, it was the release of the original live-action Transformers movie starring Shia LaBeouf, Tyrese Gibson, Josh Duhamel, Anthony Anderson, yuck, Megan Fox, Rachel Taylor, John Turturro, and Jon Voight. The plot, as best as I can figure out, Megatron came to the Earth, and jump in here where if I miss something. Because again, the plots for these three movies can be a little unwieldy at times. But as I recall, and I just got finished watching this not that long ago, the plot of the first one appears to be, in a nutshell, the Decepticons are trying to get the Allspark that are trapped in Sam Witwicky's grandfather's glasses in order to bring Megatron back to life. And the government happens to have found Megatron somewhere in the deep, and they're holding on to him. And while the Decepticons successfully bring Megatron back to life, the Autobots beat him back with a stick, and they go off into the distance, and that's your
well, points for trying, but you mind if I give this a try?
Please do. Like I said, it's a bit unwieldy, so I'm sure I missed something. Okay.
Centuries before the actual time when this movie is set, an explorer by the name of Witwicky and his team were surveying and exploring in the Arctic. Witwicky happened to fall down a hole and find what ultimately is revealed to be Megatron, who crashed to Earth centuries earlier, apparently, in search of the Allspark, which is the life-giving force, the life-giving object, the great and all-powerful, almighty, shiny, shiny MacGuffin that fell from Cybertron during the war between the Decepticons and the Autobots. And after finding Megatron is eventually, many years later, recovered by the U.S. government and kept frozen in cryostasis miles below the surface of the Earth, in the same facility as the Allspark. By this point, Witwicky's ancestor, Sam, played by Shitty LaBeouf, has come into possession of his great pretty good grandpappy's bifocals, which have been emblazoned with pretty much the exact location of the Allspark. And along the way, both the Autobots and the Decepticons come to realize this. The Autobots are out to protect Sam. The Decepticons are out to track him down and get the glasses so that they can free their captive leader and obtain the Allspark and take over Earth. And somebody on Facebook, I'm sure, is telling me that I got something wrong.
Well, I'll tell you, I will say this. Robert Winfrey, playing the home game, sent this in. Plot in these movies is as useful as plot in medium-quality porn and makes less sense. And point to you, Robert. That's a very true statement. I tell you why I got my part of this wrong. Because I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I know they bring Megatron back to life, but then Sam uses the Allspark to blow Megatron up, except that Megatron is in the next two movies. So You see what I mean by the plot's a little unwieldy and the details are a bit sketch. Ultimately, it's a big chase movie. And Sam is our titular human character meant to sort of weave the whole thing together. This is the most likable Sam will be throughout this trilogy. Shia LaBeouf's Sam Witwicky is, in this movie at least, endearing. He will become less so in the next movie, and by the third he is almost, I would tell you he's actually unwatchable. I wish somebody would do a cut of Dark of the Moon and just cut him out of it. just show me the parts with the Transformers and Francis McDormand. But
Shitty LaBeouf in this movie is proof positive that nobody who wrote this has ever had a conversation with an actual human being.
Well, look, in this one, like I said, he's a high school student. So the awkwardness and the inability to sort of make heads or tails of what's going on around him makes sense. He's an awkward, picked on teenager, bullied teenager, and he's reaching beyond his grasp. You know, he wants the ultra hot chick who's only pursuing guys with hot abs and huge muscles and all of that and big cars. Okay.
You know what? No. There is awkward, and then there's the fact that just about every single character in this movie, with the exception of Josh Duhamamamamamo, happens to be a stereotype. Seriously, just nothing but that. Just nothing but stereotype. Or B, I'm guessing written like they were actually meant to be functionally mentally challenged.
Well, let's walk through some of these. Okay. So I'm going to forgive the portrayal of Sam by Shia LaBeouf in this movie, as he was trying to do his best awkward teenager, and you're being very harsh, and maybe rightly so. I disagree. I thought he was an acceptable level of awkward. I'll even give you mentally challenged in this one. He's definitely a fish out of water. He's in extraordinary circumstances, and and on top of all that, he's a stupid kid. So, and I don't mean stupid in the, like, needs extra help, man. Stupid, like, just handles things not so great. So there's that. Sam's parents, if everything I said about Shia LaBeouf times 100, this will be the most likable they will be, and they're not tremendously likable in this movie. They'll get exponentially worse in the next two, and thankfully they did away with all three of them in the new movie. But, essentially what we have, like I said, what we have here is Sam sort of being thrown into these extraordinary circumstances with alien robots and then being chased by evil robots and having to sort of make do with that. On the other side of this, we have the soldiers. So we have Josh Duhamel and Tyrese Gibson, who are out in the desert shooting at Scorponok, trying to make, what's what in the butt. And they're doing soldier stuff. Then you have
these characters, especially, just from the very moment you meet them, I had to pause the movie as I was rewatching it because you just have to chuckle at how whoever made Michael Bay apparently decided somewhere along the line, I'm going to do all of the stereotypes. They're right there on the plane, and you have Cajun guy, crawfish and gator meat, I guarantee, ha ha ha. And then you have Boston guy, Fenway and stale beer, Noma, Patriots. And then you got Tyrese Gibson, basketball and all that bullshit. Word, man, And then you got Josh Duhamel, who you will see this movie and you will marvel at, wow, you stuck it in Fergie? that was kind of your next...
In defense of these cardboard cutouts masquerading as characters, people came to see the robots.
And might I ask something? And oh yes, we'll get to my gripe about what you just mentioned there in a second. Does it mean anything significant that when talking about this movie with friends and how I was doing a show on this, they repeatedly had to correct me? No, that's not Channing Tatum. No, in this case, I'm not doing shtick. I'm not doing one-liners or anything. Multiple people actually had to remind me, no, Channing Tatum wasn't in this.
So I want to, a couple of the characters we got to talk about real quick here. I'm just going to go down I'm on the Wikipedia page, and I'm just going to go down the list, and you can agree or disagree. Okay, we're gonna just because it's such a large cast, but there's so much to complain about. We're literally going to do like word association, and I'll give you a sentence association. Okay?
Yep.
So Shia LaBeouf, an acceptable level of awkward, stupid teenager. Sean, your sentence association. Shia LaBeouf as Sam Witwicky.
He is shitty LaBeouf and annoying. I don't know why Michael Bay felt he was necessary to make a Transformers movie enjoyable.
Okay. Megan Fox.
You want shitty beef? You have some more shitty beef. I don't want no more shitty beef. No,
Megan
Michael
Fox.
Bay. I don't want Wahlberg either. What are you doing? What's wrong with you? No. Seriously? You thought the doofus from the Italian Job and Mark and the Funky Bunch was going to save your franchise? You mad?
Megan Fox as the love interest in this thing. She's there to look pretty, to show off at her ass, and to possibly sleep with the director. That about sum it up there?
She's also there to somehow get fired by Michael Bay because Michael saw her as competition for possibly being more racist.
I would tell you that in terms of weak characters or people who can't act in this movie, they could not salvage the shitty parts that they were written. Megan Fox pretty much heads that list. She literally. There's a song that we talked about last Tuesday on Metal Hammer of Doom. You're beautiful when you don't talk. It should have been playing every time she was on screen.
Beautiful is a stretch.
Oh, she's pretty. Let's not get ridiculous.
You're moderately attractive enough for Maxim when you don't talk.
Okay. Josh Duhamel is William Lennox. He's your soldier doing soldiery things. Tyrese Gibson, he's your black soldier doing black soldiery things. So Duhamel and Gibson, sentence association, go.
Are you sure that's not Channing Tatum?
Have you? Are you familiar with CinemaSins? The everything wrong with said movie in X amount of time or less?
You know what? I've seen the series, but I've never really watched it.
It's fun. I've been watching a whole bunch of them, but they recently just did all the Transformers ones gearing up for Age of Extinction. And every time Tyrese says something, the narrator goes, You earned that paycheck, Tyrese. That's what I think of now whenever I see him on screen. Rachel Taylor as Meg.
Brief little rant here. Actually, no.
Oh boy.
I'm going to save this. I'm going to save this rant because later on we're going to play a little bit of a game when we get to talking about one of the biggest, ongoing, most irritating gripes that people had about Revenge of the Fallen, called "It's Michael Bay. What exactly did you expect?"
Okay. I want to wrap up this cast here. This laundry list of people. Say what?
Tell me, Uncle Mark. We are going to talk about Skids and Mudflap, aren't we?
We haven't gotten to that movie yet. I promise. Yes, we were going to. I promise you, we will spend an extended period of time talking about the racist box, and I have a special message for people about that.
What about the about Skids and Mudflap?
Yeah,
they were worthy of special messages.
I have well, when we get there, you'll know what I'm talking about. All right, Rachel Taylor, Maggie Madsen. She plays the hacker in this thing, and we'll never see her again after this movie. I would say I don't understand what the point of her in this movie was, except that her pointlessness is then overshadowed and practically wiped off screen by the utter uselessness of Anthony Anderson, who plays himself only as a hacker. And why is it that in 2007 we're still doing things with computers where if someone's hacking into something, they have to just tap retardedly at the keyboard? Do you know how often I use the keyboard? When I'm typing something. It just reminds me, I mean, we've been doing this for 30, 40 years now in film. That for some odd reason, when people are directing a movie and they want to have the characters doing something computery, they have to have them tapping on the keys like a woodpecker on methamphetamines. I don't understand it. No one uses the keyboard that way. And it reminds me of Star Trek IV, where Scotty walks up to the computer in 1980, whatever the year the movie was, and says, "Computer, computer," and the guy says to him, "Just use the keyboard." And he cracks his knuckles and he says, "Computers, how quaint." And then proceeds to type again like a woodpecker on methamphetamines, and suddenly he has a diagram. He did this with a keyboard, Sean, but he managed to type out a diagram of transparent aluminum. And in 2007, Anthony Anderson does the same thing. He manages to break the code that the Decepticons were using for reasons, and he does it by typing madly, ever so madly, on the keyboard. Why, Sean? Why?
Because Hollywood for years has actually thought this is the way hacking works. This is seriously the way they think it goes. I could just as easily say as much about, well, number one, speaking of this character that you speak of, well, the pretty blonde that is, how nice that Claire got off the island and managed to land among the battling robots.
I never watched Lost.
I can only imagine the postcards she's got to be sending Charlie. Before so much as one of you pedantic little ass puppets says anything, yeah, they know it's not a teen actress. No, the other thing that I would point out is, and maybe you've noticed this too, when it comes to hackers especially, Hollywood seems to know two gears, and only two gears, in terms of how it casts people. You are either Hugh Jackman in Swordfish, or you are Sheldon Cooper. You are embodiment of all the Aspergers, or you are the most ridiculously photogenic geek walking the face of the earth. No in between here. I was
going to say there's a third option. If you're black, you're Jimmy Walker.
We'll get to that one because obviously, as he does with every role, Anthony Anderson only knows one volume level.
Just rounding out the cast here, we have John Voight playing John Voight, wandering around, looking confused, and then we have John Turturro as Seymour Simmons, a member of Sector 7. Now, explain this one to me. And I wanted to do this podcast for a variety of reasons, not the least of which because there are just certain things about these films where, you know, as much as I'm an apologist for them, as much as I'm saying, shut up, have some fun, enjoy the movies where the giant robots punch each other, stop getting so excited about nothing. There were little things that really pissed me off, and his character, I'm not saying, like, his acting was bad per se, but it was like, he reminded me a lot of Jim Carrey, where he's just given material that he takes so over the top that I'm almost taken out of a movie that features giant robots punching each other in the face. And specifically, I'm referring to his opening sequence where he shows up on the bridge and Sam and Michaela get in the car, and he's throwing his weight around, and he's, Michaela's dad is a felon, and she's a felon too. And then he utters this line: "She's a criminal. Criminals are hot." Now wait a minute. Are you a government spook, or are you a pervert? You can't be both. This movie's not about that. This isn't about NSA people listening in on our private conversations with one hand on their earphones and another one on their penis. This isn't what we're trying to do here. I don't understand why Michael Bay felt the need to throw that line in there among everything else. What good did that do for that character? It was like, okay, you deal in aliens, you deal in the unknown, you're a government agent, and you're a dirty pervert. Why is that?
Throughout this trilogy, we're going to come to a lot of things that are going to make me sit here and go, why did you feel this needed to be in this movie?
If you're Michael Bay and you're like, okay, I get Bernie Mac. Obviously, Michael Bay has never met a black person before and just assumes all black people are Red Fox and Jimmy Walker. I get that. I get why in the next movie, he'll have two moron, racist black robots because he thinks that's black people. And I get all that. Hang on, I get that. I don't get why John Turturro had to be a pervert.
Okay, you know what? As long as we're talking about the human actors, I'm just going to go ahead and get this rant out of the way now.
Okay.
Because it does indeed happen. It doesn't just happen in Transformers. It happens throughout every movie. I remember when there was the big fucking bitchy racist outcry about Skip and Mudflap in Revenge of the Fallen. And when they mentioned that, they also happened to throw in there, Anthony Anderson in the first movie. And they conveniently left Tyrese out because, I don't know, because it's Tyrese. Why kick an idiot when he's down? The simple fact is, there's all this screaming about racism that one time, and it really is, it's Michael Bay. What do you expect? This is not anything new, okay? Go back and remember Eddie Griffin's cameo in Armageddon. This is just what he does, and quite frankly, the fact is, everybody just kind of goes along with it. So what's the point of even complaining? It's not like anybody hands Bernie Mac or Tyrese or Eddie Griffin or anybody. Oh, wait, hang on a sec. Hang on, we have to have some fun here.
All right. Not sure what Sean's doing here.
I'm sorry. I was trying to enforce my new rules about when friends call me during podcasts. I have a rule. You call me during the show, I put you on the air.
Oh, fantastic.
But I think either she hung up or I don't know how to add.
Radio silence. I'm going to play the Transformers theme if this keeps up. While Sean fiddles with his Skype, let me go back to John Turturro for just. Oh, what? Are you good?
Okay. Live, everybody.
Indeed.
We'll come back to that rant. We'll come back to that because I kind of got interrupted, and I now have an X that I have to chew out for calling me and fucking with my mojo.
John Turturro's okay. We're talking about. Here's what I want to. Here's how we're going to get back on track. I want to make a comparison, and then I want to move forward. Tell me if you're picking up what I'm putting down here. George Lucas, right, is criticized more often than not for people feeling like he doesn't seem to understand how human beings work. He's just this giant autistic guy, who created this massive universe, massively successful universe for other people to play in, and when he has to go create something in it, because he doesn't understand how people work, it all kind of falls apart around him. He understands how to make great images on screen. He doesn't understand how to get performances out of people. And I would tell you, Michael Bay, similar thing. Michael Bay seems to just be this guy who's not used to being around people, but saw them on TV once and more or less got a feel for what they're like. Black people are loud. Girls are hot. And I'm not sure. And soldiers are serious. Boys are awkward. You know, he seems.
But you know what, though?
And parents are annoying.
But how much room do you really have to complain? Because, look, let's face it, Bernie Mac, God rest his soul, was not a stupid man. I don't think you can be quite as successful a stand-up as he was for as long as he was and not really have a pretty observational, on-point mind. Tyrese and Eddie Griffin, reasonable people may differ. But when it comes to guys like Bernie especially, look, somebody handed them the script, they read it, and yes, I'm sure Bernie noted the fact that he was going to actually be expected to dress in a garish-looking suit and call an old woman Manny.
Hey, baby!
I'm sure the potential impact of this was not lost on him.
And it's not like Michael Bay is going to show up at the BET Awards and be showered with gifts. It was never going to happen.
No. But, I mean, at a certain point, look, folks, everybody is indeed going along with it. It's not like these are the studio system days in which these are the only parts that black actors can get. And also,
Bernie Mac, I think... Bernie Mac has gotten some really interesting... I'm saying Bernie Mac, regardless of Transformers, had a career. He didn't have to do this. He chose to play, a shuckin' and jivin' car salesman. In the interest of time, Sean, in the interest of time, I don't feel like a whole lot needs to be said about Kevin Dunn and Julie White as the Whitlickies. They're annoying parents, and see my previous rant about what Michael Bay thinks of parents. We talked about Bernie Mac. Again, nothing more needs to be said here. I want to quick talk about the Transformers, but I don't want to just talk about performances because, again, it's guys voicing giant robots.
You know what? I can't say a bad thing about one single voice actor in this movie. Actually, though, what I will say, my hat's off to Hugo. I wish you had been voicing Megatron back when I was a kid. Because that was actually awesome.
What I do want to take some time to talk about is because, again, I want to move on to the next two movies sometime before midnight. I want to also change rooms. There, that's better. They'll settle down in just a minute, folks. Please don't call DCF on me. But I want to shift gears here and to talk about probably one of the most often criticized things about these movies besides the actors themselves, and that is the look of the robots and the fight scenes. Let's just take a few minutes, and then we'll move on to Revenge of the Fallen, because, again, there's no point in talking about the plot. The plot is literally just there so you can have a movie. But as Robert Winfrey said, it's sort of like plotting a porno. It's sort of there to hang a scene on, but it's not much more than that. And so there's no point in dissecting it. But these movies are like a George Lucas film are 90% visual. So Optimus Prime scored 100%. Looks great, sounds great, performed great. He part of the reason why he's successful on screen is because of the color. In the animated show, all of the Transformers were brightly colored, and because it was an animated show for children, it had to be. Part of the problem with the Transformers movies, the first three, is that too many of the robots were silver. So, Bumblebee stands out because he's bright yellow. And I think Ratchet more or less stood out, as did Ironhide. Jazz barely stands out, and half the time you couldn't tell him from one of the Decepticons. And the Decepticons, with the exception of Scorponok, all look similar. And I'm going to add to this, and I want to get your feedback. I hated how Starscream looked. In the cartoon, he looks like a normal robot. The way they made his jet transform, he has long legs, he has sort of a short torso, he's got guns on his arms, and he looks, him and all the other, and the other two jets from the first season of Transformers look good. They added 2 more jets in the second season, and for some odd reason, they made them cone heads. I don't really understand why. But like I said, the robots in the animated series looked really, really cool. And Michael Bay had a tendency to make the lesser robots, Starscream being the most visible one, look very boxy, which is weird because Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Ratchet, and I think Ironhide, from what I remember, don't look that boxy at all. But a lot of the other robots do, especially the ones in the Autobots in the next couple of movies, like the Wreckers. They look very fat. They look very square. I mean, it looks like a kid threw legs on a refrigerator box and some tubing for arms and said, "Yay, look, my robot," which is awesome if you're a child doing a project at home. Not so much if you're the director of a film with a $150 million budget.
And again, these movies get a lot of bad raps from the fanboys, but I really do have to give them some credit. For the most part, they do look great. My only real complaints about the Autobots were, like you, I had trouble telling Jazz and Ironhide apart. But otherwise, I was actually cool with the rest of the designs. And to be honest, Optimus Prime kind of looked about like I always imagined he would, and that's about the most I can ask. I will grant you the Decepticons all looking very much alike. I thought in particular that Megatron really should have stood out a little bit more. That's one of the few things about Revenge of the Fallen that I'll give them that they really got right, is the fact that they made an effort to really make the Fallen stand out from the rest of the bunch. It's just that I wish that effort had not included a nutsack.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that in just a moment.
Well, yeah.
I don't even know what Megatron. I don't know what the hell does Megatron even transform into in the first movie? And obviously he's a gun in the animated series, and I think he transforms into like a jet or something. Well, yeah, later on.
In the movie, I'm trying to remember if I saw him really transform into anything.
I don't recall him transforming into anything.
I kind of wonder if maybe he had a little bit of a Magneto thing about kind of wondering, why should I feel the need to hide myself? I am what I am. I'm superior to you all, which, given that it's Megatron, I would actually be kind of fine with. Starscream also could have been, for as major a character as he is, differentiated much, 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 much more than he was. But, they all moved fantastically. They were incredibly well animated throughout the entire thing. And the other nice thing that I'll say is these movies have got phenomenal sound engineering. These are made to be seen via either IMAX 3D or on just a truly boss, pimped-out home theater system. And on the other hand, that's also kind of the greatest tragedy of the movie, is the fact that you've got such spectacular action scenes and so much going on that's all so well rendered, but you never get a chance to appreciate it because Michael Bay has got about all the camera effectiveness of Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah, everything is weight. Look, Transformers is made to be appreciated on a large scale. You want to see, you want to hold the camera back, and you want to see the Transformers fighting each other. The problem is he shoots it so tight, and because everything is similarly colored, you have no idea what's going on in the first three movies for the most part. And this is a problem that gets progressively worse as time goes on. It's you can't tell who's fighting what, and then you have the problem of what these things are transforming into. And they made a point of they made a point in the animated series of the Autobots are pretty much all cars with the exception of Jetfire, and then I think they added one or two as time went on, but for the most part they were all cars, and the Decepticons were for the most part all planes except for a gun, a tape recorder, and various other things. But you more or less knew where the dividing lines were. When everything's a car, at the time I couldn't tell, especially when they were in their disguises. There are times where you can't tell who's the bad guy and who's the good guy. The only ones that really, after watching these for a couple times, now Ratchet stands out, Ironhide stands out, obviously Prime and Bumblebee do. But, Jazz, I couldn't tell fucking Jazz from one of the other Decepticons. Obviously Scorponok was a Scorpion, so he don't count. But, this is just an ongoing thing where I feel like at times as a director, Michael Bay just sort of lost track of who was in what movie. And just didn't know who any of the characters were. He was just, again, he was just like a kid with toys. He was just like knocking things over, and not really paying attention to anything else. I want to wrap up. Go ahead.
And it makes especially little sense considering that this is a very toyetic franchise. Shouldn't you be differentiating everything?
Right.
I mean, shouldn't you be able to? I mean, this is supposed to be the kind of franchise wherein every kid is supposed to want to get every single last action figure, even the ones where the only difference is, the kung fu grip just happens to just crook just slightly a little bit more.
So in summation, because we want to move on to the other two movies before midnight, I feel like this movie was more or less successful. Of the three, and especially with respect to the second one, I thought Bay did the best job he could, splitting the time between the robots, who really are your feature, and the humans who have to tie it all together, for people to relate to. He'll lose sight of this. He'll lose sight of this.
I have to loosen my knee up because I'm about to seriously jerk it here, at least in some people's opinions. Because I would definitely disagree with that. I would not say that he exactly did a great job. In fact, I would say that's really one of the things he did a pretty piss poor job of.
In the first movie, you feel like it's out of balance?
I feel like it's a lot of time spent with the humans and not enough just getting to the damn fighting robots.
Okay, hang on. I want to disagree with you, and here's why. And then I'm going to let you have the last word, and then we're going to move on to Revenge of the Fallen. I feel like your feature, your main event, the whole reason people are going to see these movies are the robots. But you can't just open the movie and splash them all over the screen. I feel like you have to lead up to them. Not to mention you have characters you have to establish. The mistake I think a lot of people make is that they rush into wanting to show you the thing that you saw, that you paid your money for. I feel like a movie is much better where there's a road to getting there. Now, you can debate the length of the road, but I still feel like the scene where the Autobots all finally show up and land on Sam's lawn, now that scene itself needed to be totally reworked. But just getting there and that final, we're about 40 minutes into the movie when Prime shows up, and I thought that was great. That's how it should have been, because you needed to establish Sam. We needed as an audience to get to know Sam. Because they threw in all these other characters, you needed time to get to know them as well, especially if you're going to start, knocking them out or killing them or whatever. You know, when your last act of the movie is putting all of these people in peril, if you don't spend enough time for the audience getting to know them, then none of that stuff's paying off later. It's, okay, well, I don't know who these people were, so I don't care what you're doing to them now. So, and this is going to come up again in Age of Extinction, by the way, but I do feel like they took us on a trip and brought us to the Transformers in the right amount of time. Now, tell me why I'm wrong.
I don't know. I can't tell sometimes, really, if it's the fact that I felt like they focused too much on the humans instead of the Transformers, or if it's just the fact that I fucking hate the humans they cast so damn much. I'm
gonna play therapist here and tell you that it's the latter. I think people hate the human actors in this so much that everyone's like, just get to the robots. They're the only thing I like about these movies.
It feels like an unnecessary amount of time spent with a bunch of wholly unlikable people, and they're unlikable either because A, they're just kind of generally bad people, B, they're borderline incompetent, or C, I just don't care. I mean, and again, it's like we came back to. So many of the scenes with the actual human beings in this movie just so often leave me going, why was this necessary? Why did you feel you absolutely had to have this scene there? I mean, because if you're just throwing random shit at the wall to fill out a 2.5-hour running time, I'm sorry, you fail at filmmaking.
No, but see, I don't agree with that. I think Michael Bay thought all of this was necessary. Remember, at some point, Michael Bay is entertained by all of this. You know, we said before, you know, Michael Bay seems to see the world very flatly and in 2D in terms of human beings. You know, black people are Bernie Mac, and girls are Megan Fox, and that's, you know, and we said all this before. And I honestly think that when he's putting these movies together, he feels like this is all necessary. It's like, well, we have to, you know, you gotta think like you're Michael Bay for a moment. So do me a favor, Sean, smash your head into the nearest hard object, okay? And then
I was going to a much more painless method of drink the drain cleaner.
Sure, and then say, okay, I'm going to make a movie now. Hey, the black people over here, and, you know, I sort glass. This is how Michael Bay does a movie. I sort glass. That's my job. Red one's over here, green one's over here. That is his method. And I'm sure when the red ones are over here and the green ones are over here, he's thinking, this is absolutely necessary. This must be done. So, you know, I'm going to give you the last word here, 50 words or less here, and then we're moving on to Revenge of the Fallen.
We have to.
All right.
Wanna.
Let me see if I can sum this up. So, there's a fallen prime that can only be defeated by another prime. And the Decepticons, including a rebirthed Megatron, who blew up in the last movie and is back again in this one for some odd reason, they hatch a plan to kill Optimus so that no one is alive to kill the Prime, and that's part one. Part one, kill Optimus Prime, so no one can stand in their way. Part two, find the machine that will turn the sun into energy, into energon for the Transformers. So they're going to murder the sun and turn it into energy for the Decepticons to go back and conquer Cybertron, which I actually wish had been the plot for the first movie. Because if you watch the animated series, the guiding force of the Decepticons was that Cybertron was a dying world, and they were off in search of resources. And 90% of the series was Megatron finding new and creative ways to steal energy from Earthlings. They were attacking oil fields, solar energy plants. They were constantly doing things where they were stealing energy from the human beings. That was the whole reason why they were on Earth to begin with. And that lasted, 26 some odd episodes. So they went back to sort of the guiding force of the animated series with this one. Forgetting the stuff about the primes for a moment, the whole concept of we're going to use this ancient machine to sap the energy of the sun and turn it into energy so we can take it back to Cybertron, that's very much in keeping with the Transformers storytelling. So I was okay with it. It gets bogged down with the Fallen stuff. Honestly, they just should have called it. They should have dumped the entire Fallen storyline and just said Transformers: Revenge of Megatron. And just stayed with the idea that Megatron was in search of this machine to steal energy from the sun and murder the Earth in the process. That would have been enough. But this was sort of classic Michael Bay not knowing how to self-edit. And Aaron Kruger, who wrote this thing, it was written actually by Aaron Kruger, Roberto Orsi, and Alex Kurtzman. And between the three of them and whoever else contributed to the screenplay, they didn't get any credit for it, not really knowing, that less is more. They didn't need the whole Fallen arc of the storyline in it, but it's there, and it is what it is. So I don't know if you want to add anything else to this, but this is also where we get the stupid Mudflap and Skids robots, where, again, Michael Bay... I'm sure that I can only imagine, maybe you can weigh in on this, maybe you know something I don't, but I can only imagine there's a studio exec saying, listen, a lot of black people saw this movie, okay? We need to angle these movies so that even more black people will come and see them, because apparently they're huge fans. And Michael Bay said, okay, we put black Transformers in this. Okay. We're going to put black Transformers. We're going to put the black Transformers in there, and they're going to turn into a bucket of chicken. No, Michael Bay, no, you can't do that. Okay. We're going to put the black Transformers in there, and they're going to turn into the watermelon. No, what are you crazy? You can't do stuff like that.
No. Look, see, I painted this one's face white and everything. See?
No, Michael, just make them cars. Just Transformers. Autobots turn into cars. Just give them black personalities, okay, Michael? Okay, we're going to give them gold teeth and make them illiterate. Here's my problem with all this.
I think I have a sneaking feeling that the illiterate part was the one poke over the line.
Here's the thing. Here's why I don't join in the crusade to burn Michael Bay's house to the ground for besmirching the glorious history of African Americans in the United States. Black people saw this movie, racist robots and all, and this thing made, on the strength of that, according to Wikipedia, $836 million. Now, that's not all black people, obviously. Plenty of other races of people saw this movie, too. But my point is, and continue to this day, black people of all shapes and sizes continue to see these movies, despite the fact that Michael Bay seems to not understand how black people actually work. And so I say unto thee, and maybe I'm wrong about this. People feel free. I'm at Mark Radulich on Twitter, mradulich@gmail.com. You can write me until the cows come home. I'll be happy to hear from you. But if black people aren't going to stop seeing these movies, if black people, by and large, are not going to complain loudly about the treatment of them in these movies, why the fuck are we getting all upset about it? Why should I care? This is this guy's interpretation of black people. There's been worse, first of all. And second of all, everyone just, it's like we said about Bernie Mac, everyone just sort of played along with it. It was like, does anyone want to tell him black people don't really work this way? No, he's fine. He's a child. He doesn't get it. All right. If everyone can co-sign Michael Bay's bullshit, I don't understand why we're even talking about it. You see what I'm saying?
And let's be clear about a few of the actors he's cast in a few of his movies. Folks, I'm sorry. Here's your reality check. If you have ever gone to a Martin Lawrence movie, if you have ever watched fucking Big Mama's House and seen that sawed-off DirecTV dish-eared runt open his mouth and somehow expected Sir Patrick Stewart's voice to come out, or if you watched Armageddon and saw Eddie Griffin, and instead of hearing him mumbling to his little dog in jive, expect him to say, "I say, Pooch, it's a nice day for a crumpet and a game of cricket." I'm sorry. Go remove yourself from the human race post-haste. Okay? A lot of these actors, it's not like they were directed to act that way. That's actually the way they act. Especially guys like Martin. Even though we're kind of giving him a little bit of a pass on it for actually being somebody who can act when he tries, even Bernie Mac a little bit.
What's his face? That was on 30 Rock, the one that was just in the accident.
Tracy Morgan, yes, yeah.
He's a great example of somebody who, look, maybe off camera is a perfectly normal human being, but his shtick on camera, he might as well be wearing blackface.
Well, yeah, and
I don't get.
And when there's just one more. As long as we're talking about Bad Boys, folks, come at me, bro, for me pointing this out. Will Smith, for most of his career, in the movies that have been any good, has played exactly one character. Will Smith. That's it.
Well,
it's really not acting.
He's been in plenty of good movies where he actually acted. The ones anyone actually saw, he played himself.
Okay, Ali was good. That was one time where, he got the role he was basically born to play, and he was actually pretty good. I Am Legend, mostly okay. Ruined the ending, but mostly okay.
I'm thinking Enemy of the State.
But in the movies where he is most popular, Independence Day, Men in Black, Bad Boys, okay, and let's even throw out his one greatest career regret, Wild Wild fucking West. There is no character, okay? He's not Captain James Hiller. He's not Captain James West. He's not Agent K, okay? Whatever you want to call him, you could call him Ham Sandwich. You can call him Captain Dinosaur. Whatever the fuck you want to. He plays a variation on the Fresh Prince. That's about it. That's about the full extent of his range. So, folks, I'm sorry. Complain all you want to about how the black characters come across in his movies. The actors playing them really aren't doing anything different than what they've done in any other movie or any other stand-up special or anything else they've ever been in. Now, I'll grant that, making the obvious black-sounding robots illiterate was more than a little bit uncomfortable. Yeah, that was wrong. And you know what? Quite frankly, I'll even give him a pass on the gold teeth. Because look how many rappers actually fucking do it.
I mean, in Michael Bay's defense, if you look at the culture, the mainstream culture of black music, rap music or whatever, again, when you think about, intelligent people, people who are cultured, if you look at black culture, we'll see more than rappers and you will see more than Hollywood. There is a world of black culture out there that mostly gets ignored. And maybe people can say that there's intrinsic racism in that. You know, this isn't the podcast to sort of deal in that. And certainly two middle-class white guys having a discussion probably shouldn't be the ones doing it.
You know what? As long as
here's the thing.
I was going to say, as long as...
If my...
Sorry.
Go ahead. Go.
Can you tell us our first show back together doing this in a while? No. As long as we're going to wade into the racial pool a little bit, folks, allow me to remind you of something. For the better part of his career, Bill Cosby has been called about every dirty name in the book, up to and including an Uncle Tom by other black people.
As far back as last week. Wait, as far back as last week, because he's still doing it. I'm sorry. You're okay. No. Go ahead.
Just simply for begging and pleading with the current generation of younger black people that have a chance to kind of change things. Please, for the love of God, don't imitate the rappers anymore. Stop it. Please have mercy on an old man and knock it the fuck off after 2 decades of it.
And he summarily gets ignored.
No, like I said, he worse than gets ignored. For those of you who don't know, I actually went to high school for 2 years and spent a few years of my life after that in Jefferson City, Missouri. I went, and I not only graduated from high school right across the street from, but I knew several people, close friends of mine, who went to the HBCU across the street, Lincoln University. For those of you who aren't up on your acronyms, that stands for Historically Black College or University. And I distinctly remember actually getting several stories from several of my friends talking about how dissent and disagreement with actually spoken up in classrooms about what Cosby has said about black culture. And, using exactly the terminology that I used a second ago. Called the man an Uncle Tom. It's just simply for wanting to tell others you're smarter than this.
So, like I said, it's hard for me to get on top of Michael Bay when, I mean, look, if he's if I'm wrong, and he knows full well that black people, like any other part of the human race, run the gamut from your Condoleezza Rices and your CEOs of multinational companies all the way down to 50 Cent or worse. And he's choosing to focus on the 50 Cent part of it for whatever his reasons are. There's a valid criticism there that that he's purposely putting he's purposely focusing on the worst element of the culture, one of the worst elements of the culture, for reasons of profit. But I think there's an even more damning criticism there that despite that, people come and throw money at this franchise and don't care that he's laughing at them. And with all that said, Sean and I are not mind readers. I'm assuming Michael Bay is this dense and just doesn't know. If I'm wrong and what I just said is true, he does know. There's room for valid criticism, but in as far as this movie goes, people went and saw it multiple times, bought the DVD, and it's the same people that he's essentially criticizing. So I don't want to hear it anymore. I want to move on from this, and I want to move on from this, and I don't want to hear any more of this talk about the racist spots. Sorry, y'all walk hand in hand with Michael Bay through these films and continue to throw money at him. You're part of the problem.
You know what? Like I said, I'll point it out again. As far as I know, I have never heard of the story of a gun being held to a head. Anthony Anderson read the script. He took the part. He cashed the check. Tyrese Gibson read the script, he took the part, he cashed the check. Bernie fucking Mac, God rest his soul, read it, went out there, Mammy! Cashed the check. Cashed the check, grinned all the way to the damn bank. Nobody named him.
And there you are.
Good. And you know what? You can't exactly say Bernie was hurting for money at this point.
No, he was not an up-and-coming actor. By the way, Reno Wilson plays Carl McMillan on the show Mike and Molly. For those who don't know, he's black. So he knew, and he's the one that voices Mudflap.
Oh, is that who that was?
So,
okay.
I'm just kind of reading up on this now. Just to your point about Anthony Anderson and all that. I mean, one of the guys is white, who plays I believe Skid, but Reno Wilson, who's on the hit comedy show, plays a cop on Mike and Molly. Was on the Cosby Show. You know, he's had bit pieces here and there. He plays the voice of Mudflap, one of the gold-toothed racist robots. And he took the part willingly. You know what I mean? He took the part willingly. He read the script. He was okay with it. So with that being said, I think we've beaten this subject to death. It was worth. It's like the biggest talking point of Revenge of the Fallen, other than the convoluted plot, and the fight scenes are almost. You have no clue what's going on. This is this Revenge of the Fallen was called the worst of the trilogy. The plot made no sense. A lot of the stuff with Sam is uncomfortable. He is becoming an unlikable character. Now in this one I agree. There's way too much time spent with him and the parents. There's way too much time spent with him and Michaela. John Turturro, less of a pervert in this one, but still, you know, they just took a character which had a point, and there are times where he becomes an essential part of the plot, and then there are other times where I feel like he's just there for comic relief. In a movie that has racist robots, you really don't need John Turturro doing comic relief. One character I want to draw attention to is Jetfire. Now, Jetfire, if you watch the old animated show, was a Decepticon scientist who was not particularly evil. He was, he wasn't even really a Decepticon per se. Him and Starscream were scientists before the war broke out. Sides were formed. Obviously, Starscream's a Decepticon, and sort of Jetfire. I forget part of his origin, but basically he's not there when sides were divvied up. But when he's reawakened, he just assumes the good guys are the side that Starscream's on, so he joins the Decepticons. And then he realizes that they're bad guys, and he turncoats and joins the Autobots. He's this big-ass jet that the Autobots actually fly around in. In this movie, he's an old British, maybe Scottish. What? Again, thinking like Michael Bay, old people are also apparently from the British Isles. No, like you can't have an old man who has an American accent. Old men apparently all have to sound like, "Hello, love." I used to be an Autobot. See, raza. Don't quite understand it, but yes, Jetfire, who is in this movie, is who's one of the older Transformers. Gives away exposition. That's his point in the movie. He's there to give exposition to Shia LaBeouf, and then he's there to give his parts to Optimus Prime so that he can defeat the Fallen. Fantastic. Do we need to talk about Devastator's balls? Do
we have to?
Again, you're and I want to give credit to Benjamin Colon, who's listening tonight. He said that Michael Bay wrote the bulk of Transformers 2 because it was in the middle of the writer's strike. Yep, that would make sense.
You know what?
So,
and I don't know. Maybe Michael just hated writing enough that his theory, as I've long posited about other things, is if you do something badly enough the first time, you won't get asked back to do it a second time.
So I can only what do you think goes into someone's head? Now we've already said that we've called him autistic, we've called him a simpleton, we said all this stuff about Michael Bay. What do you think was in? And this I'm gonna drag out this question so that you have time to think about this, Sean, because this is your opportunity to bring the funny. What goes through a man's mind when he's directing a film such as this, where he thinks, what would be funny on screen? A robot with a huge testicle. See? Huge balls. We'll take construction vehicles, make them a giant robot, but we'll specifically create a situation where there are balls flapping in the breeze. What do you think Michael Bay was thinking?
Well, you asked me what went through his mind. I'd like to think it was a giant cock made of money.
All right, good first effort.
Yeah, well, and I really don't know. Do they make little robo-sperms? Because that's the whole point of having balls.
No, you don't understand. Visually, balls are funny. Get it? Balls.
At some point, wherever he happened to be driving around in his, big truck made of platinum, he happened to probably get behind another vehicle that happened to have the little dangling pink silicone ball sack hanging off the back of it. And I guess, the little John Lovitz in his head just went, that's the ticket.
I got a lot of balls. I feel like Rodney Dangerfield needed to walk out in that scene. I don't know about you, but Devastator's got a lot of balls.
I
would like to talk about Dark Side of the Moon now.
Actually, Dark Side of the Moon does bring up an interesting point, and it's something that I talked about with a couple friends earlier, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I can only think of one other franchise, and I'm counting the one I'm about to say, well, two franchises, where I can say that the curve of quality from the movie went from at least decent down to abysmal and back up to being tolerable, at least, if not really, really good, across three movies. The only other two franchises I can think of are Men in Black and the first three Indiana Jones movies. And yet somehow, in this case, and like Ben, I chalk a lot of it up to the fact that Michael wrote the second one. The first movie was watchable. It had its parts that I enjoyed, although overall, I would rather watch just about anything else than watch that now fourth time. To something that is legendarily stupidly bad in the second movie, to a third movie where it actually somehow manages to get a little bit better. I think there's more at stake. There's a gravity to the third one that isn't in the previous two. The previous two are so weighed down by a convoluted plot and by these,
like the first one, they bring the Allspark into the city. And to this day, I don't understand what the point of that was, but it was literally so they could have like. It seems to be they did it because they wanted to have an ending fight sequence in the city. People, I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent here, and we are currently at about 26 minutes left of live time, and then I'm sure we're going to have to go in a little bit into the overrun. But I don't want to go off on too much of a rant here because we don't have that much time left. But I remember the biggest complaint, and to this day it makes me hurt. It makes my head hurt. The complaint on Man of Steel, where there's all this devastation around, and you know Superman didn't save anybody, and all this other stuff. You know, there are so many times where you see, you know, like the end of the Avengers, where they between the aliens and the Avengers, they just wrecked New York City. You don't get to see the true horror of what it is you've done. You know, you don't really see people dying in any kind of way. It becomes destruction born. You know, it's just a lot of CGI and a lot of things blowing up. And like I said, it's a Lucasfilm. It just becomes one effects reel after another, and it's hard for the audience to sort of relate or tap into it emotionally because there's no context. It's just stuff blowing up, which looks cool, but that's about, you know, it's the Indiana Jones stunt show from Hollywood Studios here in Orlando, Florida. And the thing about Dark of the Moon was the end sequence where the Decepticons and Sentinel Prime, played by Leonard Nimoy, take over Chicago. And there's at least a modicum of human suffering going on. There's a lot of time spent with what the Decepticons did to that city and how it was affecting people. And even our heroes are sort of turned away at first, saying it's too big, it's too dangerous. This is a suicide mission, and we can't go in. And you know, and our hero Sam says, "No, I must go save the girl," who is not Megan Fox. So I think part of the reason why Dark of the Moon is successful is the plot of the thing is more or less straightforward. They use another concept from the animated series, which was the space bridge. It was a huge focal point of the first season of Transformers animated series, which is essentially, you know, the Decepticons were going to create a large stack of Energon and put it on the space bridge that was being manned by Shockwave back on Cybertron, and ship it there so that they could take the planet back over. And, you know, the Autobots make a point of destroying the space bridge so that, you know, the Decepticons can't do it anymore. So essentially they have, instead of the space bridge just sort of sending Energon to Cybertron, the space bridge in this movie is going to bring Cybertron into Earth's orbit so that they could just move stuff there physically and not through, you know, and not the way they do it in the animated series. Whatever. It's a minor point, but one I felt like pointing out. But essentially that's it. It was Sentinel Prime struck a deal with the Decepticons to do that, and they were going to use Earth to, you know, they'll use the Earthlings as slaves to create the energy to send back to Cybertron so that they could take, you know, so that they could reform the planet and all of that. Okay, fine. That's it. That's the plot of this thing. It doesn't really get any more straightforward than that. So automatically it was better than Revenge of the Fallen, whose plot was pretty convoluted. But like I said, there's a gravity to the movie because of you spend the entire third act just dealing with a devastated Chicago, and there's a rescue mission going on and all of this, and obviously there are several fight scenes and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, you at least as an audience member felt watching this thing like, oh wow, this is pretty depressing. The Decepticons, for the first time in 3 movies, seemingly have done significant damage to the humans, and you can feel it now. You know, Michael Bay took some time to kind of spin the camera around and say, see, this is what they did. You don't get this with the Avengers, and, you know, you don't get this with Man of Steel as such. You get it with Dark of the Moon. So you got to give credit where credit is due. You know, the cinematography and the ability to sort of show the impact on humanity was, I think, an essential part of the movie, and I think it's part of the reason why people enjoy, whether they realize it or not, enjoyed this movie more so than the first 2.
You've been accused of turning Michael Bay into a version of Rennie Harlan during your Bay impression.
Yeah, I just saw that.
No, Rennie Harlan is Tommy Wiseau.
I tried.
If anything, and Robert will get the reference here, I feel like we should instead be comparing Michael Bay to Gurr. I feel like behind the scenes he is screaming, Floor, make me a sandwich.
But let's quick go through Dark of the Moon here. Leonard Nimoy is Sentinel Prime. I don't know. It's a performance, I guess. You know, he just kind of plays a turncoat robot. There's really not much to him. You know, Leonard Nimoy has quite the awesome voice. Don't know what else to say about that. And all of the stuff that I've watched, you know, like CinemaSins and whatever, everyone likes to make fun of the fact that, you know, Megatron's in the desert, he's beat to shit, and he's wearing like fabric over his head. So, you know, so it's like, oh, everyone in the desert has to look that way. Like, oh, stop it. People just found reasons to pick on this movie.
Okay, now let me ask you something. Casting-wise,
sure.
This is also the first movie in the series where we're not subjected to Megan Fox.
Yeah.
Do you find that to be an improvement? Was Rosie Huntington-Whiteley actually any better?
Well, it's hard for me to answer that because at this point I'm not interested in Shia LaBeouf's love life. I'm not interested in Sam's love life. Like I said, the movies themselves got better. The human characters got worse. And by the time we got to the third movie, I was completely disinterested. Like, you know, if you've ever seen the Phantom Edit, which is the Phantom Edit with all of the Anakin Skywalker and Jar Jar Binks stuff cut out. Or Jar Jar Binks is cut out entirely, and Anakin's speaking lines are reduced to almost nothing. He's just sort of there. And it's an infinitely better. You've seen this?
No, I said I have miraculously never seen this.
Yeah, check it out. The Phantom Edit, folks. Check it out. I wish someone would do a Phantom Edit of Dark of the Moon that cuts out all the Shia LaBeouf stuff. You know, and just focuses on...
So you're saying you don't want no more shitty beef?
No, I'm done with shitty beef. I also don't need deep wang. Get it? Deep wang. Get it? Deep wang. Get it? Deep wang. Get it? Deep wang. Oh, get it? Wang. Get it? Deep wang.
What's his name again?
Wait, what was that? One more time?
You are apparently beating a dead horse.
No, I'm beating a deep wang. Get it?
Dead horse.
So, yeah, that was enough of that. Could have dealt without any of that part. You know, all of this stuff. You know, I'm glad what's-his-face, Malkovich, is in the movie, but he serves no purpose and does absolutely nothing. So cut him out. You know, the Frances McDormand stuff was good. I liked her role in it. So keep her. Keep the soldiers doing soldiery things. And there you go. There's your movie. And keep Bill O'Reilly because he's hilarious.
I didn't mind it. I mean, it wasn't that great. And if there's one thing I will always say about all these movies, they're all too fucking long. My God. It's a Transformers story. Do you really need 150 minutes?
Well, it depends on what it is you're trying to establish. I said in the first one I thought it was necessary. The second one, if you lose the parts with the Fallen, you lose a good 30 to 45 minutes of the movie, if not more. This one, I think they needed to take time, like I said, and show you the city being devastated and its effects on people. But if you lose the Shia LaBeouf stuff, and I'm going to go back to your original question now, one more time, Deep Wang. Was the girl an improvement over Megan Fox? I think her acting is better. And I thought her interactions with Sam were made better by the fact that she is, in fact, a better actress. However, she serves no other purpose than to be a heroine in distress and to, and she plays a part of the subplot where, you know, she's trying to have a normal life and she's trying to get Sam going in his career and be the helpful wife. And he gets dragged back into this world of Transformers, and it's, you know, it's me or the robots guy, you know. ain't that the way with bitches? You know, they always make you choose. It's always the women or the robots.
You know, actually, maybe Megan Fox should be a little bit ashamed of herself because she's the actual actress, and she pretty much got outdid in this movie by the underwear model.
Well, I think, wasn't she not sleeping with Michael Bay at this point, and that's why she got fired from it?
Well, it depends on what you choose to believe. I mean, what kind of went around a little more widely was that exec producer Steven Spielberg ordered Megan fired because in an interview she made some very widely circulated comments likening working for Bay to working for Hitler. And
right.
Supposedly it was pretty much no uncertain terms from the Schindler's List Oscar winner. Yeah, she's gone. No ifs, no ands, no buts. Done. Bye-bye.
Right. So, you know, again, for what she was supposed to do and for what it was worth, I thought it was fine. Like I said, the problem is for the 88th time, I just don't find her addition to the film in general to be worthwhile. Like I said, this was a movie that could have squarely sat on the shoulders of the soldiers and Frances McDormand and even John Turturro. Would have been okay. I guess you need Shia LaBeouf in order to, you know, because you need that one central human character. And the thing of it was is I liked his story. I just don't find his character to be all that. So, if you follow my meaning, you know, here's this guy who's now saved the world on 2 different occasions, and he's still regarded as, you know, he's called a messenger and an afterthought. And I think John Malkovich at one point says in the movie, you want the job that comes after the job, but you got to do this job first. And, you know, and he's having a hard time fitting into shoes that he thinks he's better than. And that's a fine enough story if I gave a shit about the character, which I don't.
Well, I think
that's the monumental failure of Dark of the Moon is that the writers and Michael Bay made Shia LaBeouf so unlikable.
It's hard to invest myself in a character that I want to punch.
Yeah. This one cinematically suffered from the same problems that the previous 2 films suffered from, which was you have no idea who's fighting who. And I want to ask you this question, and then I want to start to close out unless you have some burning desires about this.
Sure.
And that is, at the end of the movie, Optimus Prime shoots Sentinel Prime in the face.
Mm-hmm.
Right in his mouth face. Just execution style. And there was much made of that. Much ado made of that. People were like, that's not Optimus Prime. Optimus Prime would not shoot another Transformer dead up in his face and execute him like that. And I don't know. On the one hand, you had an extremely powerful Transformer who was seeking to annihilate the human race in favor of bringing his own planet back to life. And Optimus Prime had sworn to protect the humans from any Transformer that was going to do them harm. So in the ever-loving words of Bill Paxton, or not Bill Paxton, but in the ever-loving words of the Marines from Aliens, what was he supposed to do? Use harsh language? I'm not entirely sure I agree with the criticism that Optimus Prime shouldn't have shot him in the face. You know, these are giant, powerful robots. What were they going to do? Arrest him and put him in, Pelican Bay?
To be honest with you, that's actually one thing that I kind of like about the way Optimus is portrayed in this movie, is the fact that we see repeatedly that he really doesn't take any shit. It's a stretch to call anything in the giant robot movie really grounded. But this is kind of about as close as we're going to get, because to be true, yeah, he will not hesitate. He will not pause for a second to shoot somebody in the name of his mission and in the name of protecting the humans. So, quite frankly, I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with him not necessarily being a white hat. If anything, I kind of wish the movie, especially since, odd as this is going to sound, the voice actor brings so much to it. I would like to have seen a little bit more of the movie kind of focused on Optimus instead of on the humans. Because supposedly these are intelligent creatures that are clearly capable of actually feeling things. So, why not take that and run with it a little bit? Why not try to develop that and actually give them some personalities that are more than what you're already doing? But
I said before I wasn't always pleased with how the Autobots and Decepticons looked in these movies. This was an example of one of the things I absolutely hated. They used the Wreckers in this movie, Leadfoot, Roadbuster, and I think there's another one. In any case, they're really, really boxy and awful looking. They have the hood of the car just sort of sits on them really weird, and they look about as intimidating as Rodney Dangerfield's character from oh shoot, what was the name of the movie where oh gosh, Woody Harrelson? It's really dark. Isn't the name of this? Used to watch Natural Born Killers.
Oh yes.
Yeah, they just look dumpy. It was one of those weird ones. Like if you're going to make a Transformers movie, for God's sakes, make the robots look cool looking. And he went out of his way to make some of them look really, really dumpy. And I wonder if it's like, well, we want more focus on the humans here, and the robots are just sort of a backdrop. And it's like, no, they're supposed to be your feature. I think that's one of the criticisms I have of the movie franchise from the first to the third one is, I said before, the first one, they were your main event, and when you finally introduced them, they look awesome and everything is cool about it. That whole introduction, up until the point where they were pissing around on the front lawn, was great. And then they get progressively shoved into the background, with the exception of Optimus Prime, and the robots just look shittier. Special effects-wise, they look fine, but I just felt like presentation-wise, I wasn't tremendously happy about it. And so, the show is called Long Road to Ruin. The series itself picks itself back up again with the third movie, but there were definitely some things that fell off since the first one. Any last words here on Dark of the Moon?
Not really. I feel like we pretty much covered most of it. You really nailed it. It actually kind of gave us more of a feeling that something was at stake, and that it wasn't like the humans weren't enduring any casualties along the way. And if you're going to put the people in the movie, that's kind of the thing to do. I would really rather see much more of a focus on these movies, on the humans really kind of being the measuring stick of the casualties, and kind of being the really visual collateral damage, rather than the goofy fucking focal points in the foreground.
Right. So, any last words about the trilogy in and of itself?
You know what? Quite frankly, at this point, it's a hard trilogy for me to really get mad at the things that I don't like about it, because by now, at this point, if you went to go see the fourth movie, regardless of what you thought, you have no right, if you went to see it at all, to go anywhere near social media and start your bitching about it. You really don't. Because if you went to see the fourth movie, reasonable assumption that you at some point saw the first three movies, which means you had a pretty good idea of exactly what you were going to be getting. You knew exactly what this was going to be, whether you're familiar with Michael Bay as a director. You know, you saw Transformers, you saw Dark of the Moon, you saw Revenge of the Fallen, you saw Dark of the Moon. That's it. Your expectations have been cemented. So at this point, hey, you know what? It's your money, not mine.
It's on you.
Maybe I'll Redbox Age of Extinction when it comes out, and I'll give it a try. In fact, I'd say chances are, yeah, I probably will. But as far as actual,
hang on, I don't want to give, since you brought it up, I don't want to give too much away here because we're supposed to review the movie later on in the week. Let me say this: I enjoyed Age of Extinction. I'll say this much: I don't agree with a lot of the criticism that's out there, and I think you're absolutely right. If by now you were not expecting a 3-hour-long demolition reel with stereotype characters, what did you think was going to happen? What did you think was going to happen in this movie? So I'm not sure what there is to, the thing of it is like, if you're going to complain about a Transformers movie, complain that maybe there aren't enough Transformers in it, or the Transformers look bad. I mean, like I said, I've had plenty of complaints about the movies. I thought, things like, even if you're going to make a stereotype character, don't make them do out-of-character silly things like, criminals are hot. All right, take it easy. For a second, I thought that was going to go into porno. Overuse of the parents. There were plenty of things to criticize about these movies, and we've done the past 2 hours of doing that. But don't sit there and it's. I went to go see a black and white movie and then got pissed because there was no color. Well, hang on. I enjoy these movies. Let me give my final words here, and then we'll go into plugs. The Transformers movies are guilty pleasures. They are, like my favorite movie of last summer was Pacific Rim. And why was it my favorite movie of last summer? Because giant robots punched monsters in the face. That's why. I don't know how else to say it better than that. I went to the movies to go see the robots that I loved as kids show up in live action on the big screen and punch each other in the face. And if nothing else, for all the comments about Anthony Anderson and and Blackerface and Michael Bay being autistic and all of that stuff, if you got nothing else, you got plenty of robots punching each other in the face. So what more could you ask for?
Yeah, I mean, there are things about the movie that I would like to be better. I think it was actually Ben that I was talking to the other day when I said, you know what, I really would have loved to have seen this movie handled by somebody who really kind of would have brought it even more to life as far as the actual characters and the world of the whole thing, rather than it just being one director's kind of stereotypical movie. It would have been fun to imagine someone like Guillermo del Toro or Peter Jackson taking the reins. But all things considered, when it comes to Del Toro, hey, I'm pretty happy with the giant robot movie he did get to make.
Yep. My improvements on these movies would have simply have been to maybe streamline the plots, lose the things that weren't in the original series, because, like I said, there are elements of the original series in these things. It gets, it was like he turned a strictly fantasy concept and tried to make it into science fiction, and on those levels, they fail. You don't need all this convoluted psycho jargon in the middle of these movies. The bad guys want something. The Earthlings have it, and the Autobots have to protect the Earthlings from the bad guys.
And
that's all we needed to know.
And here's why I don't kind of play the butthurt fanboy here about a sacred cow franchise.
Hang on 1 second. We have 60 seconds left of live time. For those of you who endured this podcast, thank you for listening live. We'll be back in 2 weeks to start part 1 of 4 of Batman the Animated Series. We'll do a full series of plugs in just a few minutes, but if you've been listening live up to this point, we greatly appreciate your patronage. We hope you've enjoyed the show tonight. It was a lot of fun being back. All right, go ahead, Sean.
All right. I was going to say, one of the things I've kind of come to realize, and this especially goes back to kind of what's become of the Star Wars series, is I could complain about what's been done to a beloved franchise. I could complain that it's sullying the legacy of it, but folks, take the nostalgia goggles off. Don't lay them lens down. That'll scratch them. Just set them aside momentarily. You can put them on in a second. But first, Unky Sean has a sledgehammer blow of reality for you. This isn't a franchise that was particularly dignified in the first place. That's the first point you have to take into consideration. The second is this. Go to Netflix. Go look around. There's Beast Wars, there's Prime, there's the original series. All of them right there for you to watch if the Michael Bay vision of Transformers is not exactly your thing. They haven't been erased. They're right there, still there for your viewing enjoyment. Just chill the fuck out and just go watch the good stuff instead. Do what I do with the Paranormal Activity movies or Dexter. Just watch the stuff you want to remember. Because believe me, the bad does not erase the good. Not entirely, anyway. So that's kind of my last thoughts on the franchises. Yeah, the movies aren't my thing, so I'll just go curl up on the couch with a beer and watch Beast Wars.
There you go. All right.
Yep.
Sean, we bumped heads a little bit, but I think that's just a measure of how excited we were to be talking to each other again about movies and doing this show. I had a lot of fun tonight. I missed doing the show, and it wasn't like I was gone entirely. I mean, and we've also spent the last 3 weeks talking about Orange is the New Black, so it wasn't like we went into this completely cold. But there's nothing quite like The Long Road to Ruin, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like you said, it's kind of become the flagship show of the Radulich Broadcasting Network. And that's not to say anything ill of the rest of our shows, but...
No, it's not to say anything ill of shows like From the Cheap Seats with Jason Teasley, Jesse Starcher, and Robert Cooper every other Thursday at 10 o'clock. They talk sports news. It's the fastest rising podcast on the Radulich Broadcasting Network. Jason Teasley, Jesse Starcher, Robert Cooper, From the Cheap Seats, 10 o'clock every other Thursday.
The pantsless PR man from the Florida No Pants Clan, folks. And we can thank Jackie for coming up with that one, by the way. I've been repeating that the last few weeks just because it has such a nice ring to it.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Jackie used that on a status post, and I just kind of thought, you may consider that stolen. Thanks, Jackie.
My wife will be happy to know that we are known as the No Pants Clan. I actually said that. I referred earlier to my house guest, and I actually said that I said it's been great having her here. She's been a huge help, with the children, and we're happy to help her get her foothold here in Florida. But the one thing that the one impediment to having her here is she's the only reason why I'm still wearing pants 5 seconds after I walk in the door.
Well, I'm sure she appreciates the modicum of courtesy.
She's a nice gal. She's 19 years old, and she doesn't need to see my fat ass traipsing around in what may or may not have the ass bit out of my underwear. We used to have dogs. That's all I'm going to say about that. And Sean would say, swirl that bit of Merlot in your mouth just a bit before you spit it out.
Yeah, one of my many what Jackie has come to dub Seanism.
So, as I said, we'll be back in 2 weeks. I've already started to dig into Volume 1 of Batman the Animated Series. We'll be doing 4 episodes on that, so that's going to take us clear past July, straight through August into September. We'll announce when we get a little bit closer what we're doing once we get to September. I know some thoughts that I had. I want to do the Matrix. I wanted to do the Dark Knight trilogy. Somewhere out there, Gavin Napier is going to step in for Sean when Sean wants to take a break, and we're going to do The Mummy with Brendan Fraser. In October, I'm going to be taking at least a week and a half to 2 weeks off, so it means I won't be around for at least one show. So Robert Winfrey will be stepping in again. And if you guys follow instructions, you'll be doing Leprechaun, see? So, we've got a rough schedule worked out ahead of us, but for the time being, be prepared for the next 4 shows to be Batman the Animated Series, starting with Volume 1. Besides that, tomorrow night, here on the Radulich Broadcasting Network, Sean and I will be closing out our Season 2 review of Orange is the New Black, episodes 10, 11, 12, and 13. So you can check that out tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Last week, Metal Hammer of Doom, Robert Cooper and I reviewed the new Steel Panther. And so a week from tonight, we'll be back on the Metal Hammer of Doom covering the new Body Count album, Manslaughter. And we're going to bring on a special guest, Radulich Broadcasting superfan and honorary producer, Jesse Starcher. He'll be on because he loves him some Body Count as well. So it'll be the 3 of us talking about that. This Thursday, hopefully, Robert Winfrey, Pat Mullen, and I will be reviewing the new Age of Extinction Transformers movie. And Friday, Robert Winfrey is back on his own show, Everyone Loves a Bad Guy. Saturday night, he's got coverage of UFC 175. Sunday night, he's doing the 411 Ground and Pound show with Jeff Harris at 8 o'clock. I will be covering for 411 the Ultimate Fight. Yes, I'm coming out of retirement, one night only. The Ultimate Fighter finale, BJ Penn versus Frankie Edgar at featherweight. That's right, featherweight. And the reason why, in case anyone was wondering, the reason why I'm doing coverage that night is because Larry Zonka, God bless him, was kind enough to put our live commentary of UFC 174 in his coverage thread. He didn't have to. I don't work for the site anymore, but he did me a solid, and I said, I believe in the free market and honoring one's debts. So if he would do that for me, that I would take one of his shows to cover. And just so happens I have nothing to do this Sunday. So there you go. Oh, by the way, Friday, of course, is July 4th. It's Independence Day, so I hope everyone has a happy and safe holiday. I think I got all the shows. If I've forgotten you, please don't take it personally and post it on Facebook. John?
I've really got nothing else because you already hit Orange is the New Black tomorrow night. I'm kind of taking some time off guesting on other people's podcasts, in part because, number one, I haven't really heard a topic lately that makes me go, aha, okay, I must invade this show for a while. But also because real-world work is momentarily kicking my ass. So I will instead just say thank you to everybody who listens, thank you to everybody who subscribes, Thank you to everybody who downloads us. Thank you to Jackie for the huge help that she is with running our Facebook page and interacting with everybody there. You all are a big part of my 2 favorite Tuesdays of every month. I absolutely love doing this. I get to shuck all my other responsibilities. The N7 hoodie is kind of momentarily in the closet for the time being because I don't need to explain this. It's fucking summer in Arizona. Why do you think I'm not wearing it right now? But
all right,
that's about it. Keep tuning in to all the fine Radulich and Broadcasting Network programs. And keep in mind, I admit without any apology whatsoever that part of the reason I came up with the idea to do these DC animated shows is because I just have a feeling that Ben is going to have a great damn time doing these title cards.
Speaking of Ben and everybody, I want to just throw a quick thank you once again to everybody who stepped up and stepped in while I was not able to be in a leadership role over the past couple of weeks. I took some time off, as we all know by now, to focus on the birth of my son. Things went better than I could have ever hoped. He is a healthy, happy, bouncing baby marshmallow. We call him Meatball. He's got moobs. But, it went better than expected. He's just an awesome kid, and it allowed me to come back sooner than later, and it allowed me to do more while I was away than I thought I could. But that doesn't. But Benjamin, Robert Winfrey, Robert Cooper, Sean, everybody did their part to kind of keep things afloat and and keep people moving. And with that said, June has actually been our highest month of listens over in the past 6 months. We've had the most between live listens and archive listens. The Radulich and Broadcasting Network has had the most listens in the month of June than any month previous for the last 6. And I could not have done that on my own, and it wouldn't have happened if it weren't for the rest of you guys. So it's all your hard work is greatly appreciated. Everybody that contributes, everybody that listens.
I swear we've got to figure out a way to monetize our show.
Well, I could stand on the corner with a sign that says "We'll drop pants and podcasts for cash."
To be honest, in all seriousness, if I could think of something that we could actually offer people who would be willing to donate for a show to us doing this, I would love nothing more than to set up a Patreon account. But the problem is, I can't think of anything we could really give anybody as a reward that would make them go, yes, I will indeed give you money per show to produce this.
Well, I'll gladly take donations to do more impressions of Michael Bay. Now, here's what we're going to do. See, we're going to put the black people over here and the white people over here, and then Optimus Prime's going to ride the Dinobot.
It sounds like what I imagined Homestar Runner would sound like after going through puberty.
All right. That's it, folks. This has been The Long Road to Ruin. I am the mandated reporter, Mr. Mark Radulich. He is Sean Comer. Sean, tell him your thing.
Never dull your colors for someone else's canvas, folks.
Be well, be safe, and behave, and always remember, you've got the touch.
You got the touch. You got the power.